How many times have you heard experiences from individuals and families who are struggling with the challenges of aging, caregiving, the unknowns of health, loneliness, financial worry, and just general overwhelm? I spent 10 years working in the aging sector, hearing these same stories of struggle over and over again. And at the root of it all, no one is teaching us how to plan for aging from a holistic perspective. So welcome to the Ageucation Podcast. This is where you will get the aging education you didn't know you needed. My name is Jess Davis. If you are in your 60s or 70s, or you have parents in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, you are in the right place, my friend. We are all aging. We all want to maintain our autonomy and independence as we age. So let's intentionally prepare our families for the needs of our eldest years. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ageucation Podcast. And in this episode, this is the start of sharing stories and experiences of clients that I've worked with or people that I've talked to throughout the last 10 years that I've worked in the aging sector. So today's story was a pretty recent one, actually. Back in the fall, I was attending a lot of holiday markets to promote my Leaving Legacy journal that I created. Maybe actually we'll just do a quick ad for the Leaving Legacy journal. If you don't know, just as a sidebar, I created a life story keepsake journal called Leaving Legacy. It's a journaling book that has over 150 prompts for someone to document their life story all in one place and in their own handwriting, which just makes it extra special. And it makes a keepsake for their family or friends to remember them and hold special memories of them. So you can find more information or purchase the journal on my website, nestage.ca, which I will link in the show notes. But back to the story. At one of these markets where I was selling my journals, I started chatting with a woman about age planning and what I do. This woman was probably in her 50s, I would say, early to mid 50s. And she started telling me a bit of her story and what she had gone through. She'd gone through what I would call like multiple traumatic aging experiences with her grandparents. And now it was starting to happen with her own parents. Her grandparents had never planned for their long-term care, and she described putting her children to bed at night in her own home and then driving an hour to her grandparents' home to spend the night with them and care for them through the night, only to then drive home to her own home in the morning to get her kids on the bus and herself off to work. She was the care team at night. There was no one else. Like, whoa. Talk about a situation to put you straight into a full cycle of burnout. This poor woman, as she told me her experience, the mindset that she had behind it all was just that, like, it was just what she had to do in that season of life. She described just that there was no other option for her family at the time, and she wasn't willing to watch her grandparents go without the care that she thought they deserved. And amongst all of her description and explanation was just this deep sense of defeat and burnout and exhaustion, which I do not doubt for a moment that this woman just craved support in that season of her life that she did not have. And that experience has now resulted in the discussion that she's been trying to move forward with her own children, but it's getting stuck. Or so she told me that it was getting stuck. So let me tell you what she described to me and what I mean by that, like that they were getting stuck in the conversation. Out of her past experience, this woman is thinking about her own aging, and she wants to be proactive so that her kids don't experience the overwhelm and the distress that she went through in a family that did not prepare for the needs of her grandparents. And she's trying to proactively talk to her kids about her aging and what that could look like and what her preferences would be and what their role might be. But she said to me, how do I get my kids to talk to me about it? Whenever I bring it up, they just tell me to make my plans on my own and they'll do whatever I want them to when the time comes. And she was visually frustrated about that while talking to me. It was clear that she's trying to have the conversation with her kids and they just don't get it, as she kept saying. And in my head, I thought, like, you just answered your own problem. But she didn't realize it yet, because this was the sticking point that she was missing. Her kids don't understand why she needs their conversation and input. Of course, they don't get it, in quotations. They're like, her kids are in their 20s and they didn't experience what their mother did in caring for her grandparents. They don't know what that strain and reaction and struggle feels like. They don't see the need to be proactive. So I said to her, there is a reason inside of you that needs your kids to be a part of your age planning. And they need to understand what that reason is. I said this and I kind of watched her heart drop. Like, she knew exactly what I meant. And she said with such a heavy heart, she said, there are 4 reasons that instantly come to mind. And I could see her, as she was saying this, like transporting herself into an experience or an emotion or something that she hadn't fully allowed herself to process and hadn't shared with her children. So I encouraged her and I said, you need to work through whatever those 4 reasons are within yourself and decide how you can comfortably present them to your children so that they understand why you need their collaboration in planning for your own aging. And it clicked for her in that moment. I could see the light bulb go off over her head, and she understood what her children had been missing all along. And her demeanor and body language even shifted at this point in our conversation, because she now had an action step to move towards proactive conversations with her kids. She had been missing what was she missing? She was trying to figure out why she couldn't get her kids to have this active conversation with her. They just did not want to be involved in it. And she had hope again that she could get through to them and not feel so alone in trying to plan for her future aging needs all on her own. And after she walked away, and I was chatting with other people at this market event, but she came back to my table and she said, I am so glad I met you today, Jessica. I can't tell you how meaningful this conversation was for me. And my heart melted, y'all. This is what I'm here for, helping families find optimal aging, intentional conversations, proactive planning, and above all else, autonomy in aging. That is what I want every family to have. That is what I want your family to have. And I mean that so genuinely and so humbly. But I would encourage you to maybe go back and listen to that story to let it all sink in. But I'll leave you with that for today. And I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ageucation Podcast. I have 3 reminders before you go. Number 1, go check out the show notes for any resources or links that I mentioned in this episode that may have piqued your interest. Number 2, please share this episode with a friend whom you think it would bless, because in order for more families to benefit from my age planning resources, I need listeners like you to spread the word. And number 3, I would love to hear from you. Email me with your thoughts on this episode or suggest a topic you'd like to hear on a future episode. Find my email in the show notes. And remember, we're all aging. Aging is the same as living, and it is a privilege to live and to age.